Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you are listening to The Makers of Minnesota, where we talk to cool people doing cool things in the state of Minnesota. And my guest today is, I think, a personal friend, Haley Matthews.
Oh, I don't know
Jones.
about that, Stephanie. I don't know. Yeah, of course you can.
Personal friend who happens to curate both the Minneapolis craft market, but also the Minneapolis vintage market. Thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to be with you too.
Yeah.
I remember when I first met you, and I don't remember where we first met. Maybe it was on the Weekly Dish, because you also
I think
curate
so.
Women Who Whiskey.
Women Who Whiskey, yep.
With your friend Molly.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered when I met you right away, like you had the thing that I like in people. Like that I'm like, oh, they're a cool person. They're doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then little did I know that over the course of the last couple of years that we would end up actually working on a project together.
Yes. Yeah. A couple of projects together,
Yes.
in fact. Yeah.
So you curate the Minneapolis craft market, and then that moved into also curating the Minneapolis vintage market.
Yeah.
And we work with you, or I work with you on the Art and Bayfront Park and Stone Arch Festival events where we do vintage markets.
Yep.
You are British, right?
That's right.
How did you get here?
So I moved here in 2008. I did the whole fiancé visa thing and came here on that. Met a boy, married him, came here. And then a few years after that was really missing like that whole market scene that London has. And that was kind of what I grew up as a teenager doing, like on my weekends and stuff. And just felt like that was something that was really missing here. So I started the craft market in 2015. And then we added the vintage market in 2018.
So when you were in London, did you live in London?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in Greenwich.
And you grew up there?
Yep.
And so how weird was it to have met someone and like right away were you like, oh yeah, United States, let's go?
It was a little more, it was a little trickier than that. We went back and forth for a while on whether to move to London or, you know, both of us were traveling at the time that we met. And so we were both kind of homeless, for want of a better expression. And it was kind of easy in that way that neither of us had ties to one place. So we could really choose wherever we wanted. And at that time, it was the beginning of 2008, and we naively thought, well, you know, the US has like a great economy right now, and, you know, it would be really easy to find a job there and stuff. And I moved here in November of 2008, which was like a month before the whole recession hit.
Yeah.
And at the time that I moved here, I couldn't work for about 6 months until I had my employment authorization. And it was winter in Minneapolis, and I was just really ill prepared for that. I had like one slightly warm coat, which was no snow boots. I came here with like, you know, a pair of hiking boots, I think was the closest thing I had. So I was very like, I did not fully understand what I was signing up for, I will say. And the first few years were really hard. And then I feel like each year it's gotten progressively easier.
And I think it's good that you didn't know, because you maybe wouldn't have come, right?
I would not have definitely would not have come. I would not have signed up for that winter.
And certainly, like from 2008 to now, I would say the political climate has changed a lot, both for maybe some good and some bad, depending on your point of view. The economy's been good since then.
Yeah.
So tell me about what the scene is in London for people that don't know what that market scene feels like.
Yeah, it's just really every area of London has this, you know, a huge bustling market that has been in place for decades, if not centuries. So like where I'm from in Greenwich is actually the longest running continuous market site in London, maybe even in England, I'm not sure. So there's always been a market on that square of land since like the 1700s. And so it's just such a cultural like icon, you know, it's everything is built around that because that's how the town grew, you know.
And it's community.
It's completely community. And so that market in particular is very heavy on arts and crafts on weekends. And then they also have specific days that are just for antiques. They also do like a vintage car event in the market a couple of times a year. And then so different parts of London are famous for different things. Camden in like North London has a lot more punk, a lot more music scene, a lot more kind of edgy art stuff, I would say. And then you go to like a Portobello Road, and that's definitely heavier on classic antiques and produce. And,
cool.
You know, so each one has its own kind of personality and definitely its own crowd. And so it was just a really, it was very much part of my upbringing, and I just really missed that here.
So when you came, you decided you wanted to start that. You built, I'm assuming you built some software to kind of put this together, or how did you sign people up? Because you seem like you have a really seamless point of entry.
So I've been an event planner since I graduated university, so 15 years now. And I actually just use Eventbrite for my registration. And I've piloted a couple of different systems, and, I feel like Eventbrite is expensive. They've changed their fee format in the last couple of years. It is expensive, but it's also the best. And functionality wise, until someone makes something better, or until I'm ready to invest into custom software, which I'm not, I don't really have any desire to do that. It works fine and everyone knows how to use it.
That's funny because I just assumed you had some proprietary software. So you're sending out, you have your list of people, you send out to your 200 possible vendors, and then they sign up through Eventbrite, they pay, and you're good to go.
Yeah, so the whole kind of system behind the market and how I wanted it to run was, I wanted it to be different from an annual craft fair where there's this kind of months out application process, and you have to be, as an artist or a vendor, super organized and know all your deadlines, and you find out months in advance. I wanted to create a regular outlet for people. So if they had a slow month and they need to make up some money, they can sign up for something up to our registration closes every Sunday night at 8 p.m. for the upcoming week. So if there are spaces left, you can sign up as late as a week ahead of time. And so I wanted to have this very self-managed system. I don't want to be, approving things and waitlisting people and manually managing all of that. It's very we have a lot of automated systems down for waitlisting and things like that now. So that just, it was meant to be very hands off for me because of the volume that we do. So, I host over 80 events a year now. And so to be micromanaging people into those slots is way too much.
Yeah. So I just assumed you had proprietary software. That's fascinating.
I should look into
that. You use Eventbrite.
Yeah.
But again, maybe not. If it works for you, what's the point?
Well, that's kind of where I am. It's there are other things that right now probably need more of my time and focus, and I could look at improving that, but it's also, it works. So
yeah.
If it ain't broke,
and how many craft markets are you doing versus this vintage market thing has really taken off, it seems like? Yeah,
the vintage market, we just do one a month. So we have 12 a year of those. I think actually we did 13 this year with the Bayfront Park Festival added in. And then the craft market, we do basically 2 or 3 shows a month through kind of October time. And then as soon as it gets to November and December, we have 6 events a day in December, some weekends.
What is craft to you?
To us, so our criteria that we use is it has to either be handmade, fair trade and ethically sourced, and preferably that the maker is the person that's there selling, although that's not a strict requirement for us. So I can tell you what it's not. It's definitely not things like multi-level marketing businesses. We don't allow
press on
resale
and
things like that. So we try and be pretty strict about knowing where everything is sourced from and that it has an ethical or sustainable piece to it if possible. And we have now just over 1,000 artists that are approved to sell with us now.
That is so amazing that there's that many.
Yeah. And they keep coming out of nowhere. And I'm like, how have I never heard of you before? And, we get new people. We average about 30 applications a month. So
that's
just
so
constantly
excellent.
Coming in. Yeah.
And you have a team of people now. I've worked with some of your team. They're great.
Yeah.
So you can you just continue to grow? And is that a business strategy or is it to do something different? When you look ahead.
Yeah.
Because you've been really successful the last couple years.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah, that's interesting. You should ask that because I actually just finished a course over at Women Venture. So they just started offering this 10-week course. And previously they had done things for startup businesses, and I had done a couple of their initial classes on writing a business plan and things like that. And then they also offer things for businesses that are at the kind of multi-million-dollar plus level and seeking investment capital and things like that. But they didn't really have anything for that middle ground. So they just launched this new course. It was a 10-week course with 5-week focus on business financials, and then 5 weeks on marketing. And basically the point of it is to develop a 5-year plan, figure out where you're going next, and then make sure that your finances and your marketing plan are both working towards the same thing, and that you understand how those two pieces are going to get you to your 5-year plan.
How smart.
So it's a super cool course. I highly recommend it. I think Women Venture does really excellent education anyway, but this was particularly useful for me because I was feeling very much like, so that, my initial business plan was to get to the point where I am now. And then I had that question of like, well, what's next? How do we grow from here? So where I'm looking to go next is to build out our kind of online presence and our assets and things like that, so that we are not just a straight retail commodity where we have the events piece down, but then we're also providing educational resources for all of these small businesses that come through us. We are looking at starting a podcast next year, which would be like another way to do, we did some educational workshops earlier this year, and it would just be kind of a more practical format for the people that can't always attend an event in person. Everyone's so busy and stuff. And then building our library of like resources in terms of, we'll be launching a blog with our new website later this month, and some how-tos and easy takeaway pieces, and then also educational pieces for people that are wanting to, if you're an artist or a maker who's like not sure how to make that jump into selling in person or selling online, offering resources to train people to get their business to those places.
Is that something that you are doing for profit or for wholeness of the community that you serve?
Yeah, I don't really see it as a moneymaker. I don't even know if we'll charge for many or any of those resources. What I see it more as is leveraging the knowledge that we've gained in the past 4 years and building our reputation. So my goal really is for the market to be the go-to place that if someone is writing an article or if someone is making a TV show about, any of the industries or sectors that we serve, that we're the go-to people. So whether it's a speaking engagement for me, or it's trying to get in touch with some of our vendors for opportunities for, like Mall of America has done pop-ups recently using
right.
A lot of vendors that come through our markets. Rosedale now has Rose and Loon. And so there are all these different opportunities that I see as being like next in the pipeline for people that start at our markets. And how do we get them ready to take those next steps, or whether it's even just taking their business from part-time to full-time. So I think there's a lot of what I love about the community that we have here is that it's a lot about collaboration and community. People are very willing to share their information and their experience that they've learned, as I'm sure you're finding that with the podcast as well, that it's really cool that people are willing to say, like, someone helped me on the way up and I would like to help other people. So
and does that feel like you?
Yeah. It feels like a natural progression, because I think that we are at a place where there's not a lot more to fine tune on the markets that we're offering. And I feel like as we've seen people who maybe did their first markets with us in the first season that we were open, those are the businesses that are now at Mall of America or even starting their own pop-up locations or stores. So I think it's really cool to see that growth of people's business and
the evolution.
Yeah. It's really cool. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and really just to galvanize what it is that we've learned and share that out with people.
And there is a lot of that in the food space, or some of that in the food space, like maker to market, and how do you scale up, and you start at the farmer's market. How do you end up selling to Kowalski's, and what does your packaging need to look like? And people have resources that help people, but there isn't that in retail at your level that I've ever seen. So
yeah. And I think there's lots of opportunity for us to do things in a fairly low cost way with online resources, and even just how we present the products that are coming through our markets. So we're working on building up our library of really good product photography. We have a lot of in-person live event photography, but we don't have a lot of styled shoots and things like that. And for both of our markets, that's a really essential piece. And the vintage market even more so in some ways, because it's kind of about that lifestyle and that inspirational piece that I think sometimes people struggle with vintage, of feeling it's overwhelming, or because you don't know what you're going to find when you go to a vintage market. A lot of people get turned off by that. And so showing people, okay, well, if you have a denim jacket, for example, here's how you could style that. And so kind of showing people less about the specifics of you will find this is what you can buy. It's more about how do you incorporate those pieces into what you're already wearing, or how your home already looks.
Yeah. Arcs Value Village used to have a styling, and I think they probably still do.
Yeah.
I really thought that was so smart.
The personal shopper service. So they do still have that. I think it's fantastic. And I've done that session with them, and it was so fun because I did that with Michelle Raven when she was still there, and she picked out a bunch of things that I never would have picked off the shelf for myself. But they were just so cool. And of course, it's like for a good cause as well.
Our mutual friend Sarah is coming to my house, I think next weekend. I said to her like a week ago, I feel like I need like a 2020 makeover. Like I'm just I left corporate America, as it were, about 3.5 years ago. I have cute summer clothes because dresses are pretty easy. And I have like, I'm going to an event clothing. Yeah. But I don't have like cute, stylish jackets and things to wear with jeans. And I'm, the pressed shirt thing is like, I have a million of them, but who wants to wear those? Yeah. So I was like, I feel like I need a style. She's like, okay. So she's going to come over and we're going to Marie Kondo the closet.
So fun.
And I'm terrified. And she keeps sending me like pictures of things. I'm like, I would never wear that. I would never wear that. That's too much color. That's too much pattern. That's too much. Yeah. She was like, oh my gosh, if this is going to work, you are going to have to open your mind, friend.
And I'm looking at you right now across the table. You're wearing a black t-shirt with a black jacket.
Yep. And jeans and black. Yep. And my dance goes, which she's like, I can't believe you even wear those out of the house. Like, I love them. Hilarious. But I think when you have someone that sees your style or can style you or give you different, it's like, oh, it's so eye-opening.
Yeah. And another thing that we want to focus on, so we do have a number of our vintage vendors who actually offer personal shopping services, which is so cool because you can set up an appointment with them, go to their homes or their studios, and they'll have a bunch of stuff picked out for you that you can try on, that it's not like rushed. It's a little fun kind of.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm too big to wear vintage because I'm a 12.
Same. I feel the same.
Yeah, and everything is so cute, and it's a 4.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, it's great for a 24-inch waist.
And why do you like? I'm like, I guess was the world 24-inch waisted?
I guess everyone just like drank gin and tonics and smoked cigarettes. 50 cigarettes a day, and you'll be fine. You'll so die true. At the age of like 40, but it's fine.
You'll be able to fit into that size 4 pencil skirt.
That's kind of more of a plug, though, to do the personal shopping piece, because that takes some of that frustration out of it, because they'll already have picked out stuff that will work for you. And
there's a woman, Nora McInerney, that she wears a lot of vintage clothes, and she's tall. Yeah. Thin and tall, but not like size 4 thin. So I'm always like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. I'll find something.
And I think she gets a lot from Tandem.
She does.
Amanda at Tandem Vintage. She'll hook you up. She'll get you going.
So when you took the business course about the financials, were there things about your financials that you learned that were shocking?
Yeah, and I think there was just a lot of stuff where I was familiar with the terms, like a cash flow projection. Like, I know what that is in my logical brain. Like, I don't know how to do one, though. Like, well, I do now. But, like, those are the kinds of things where you hear these things bandied around. And, like, I'm used to just looking at my bank balance and saying, I have money. But, like, I don't really have a grasp on, well, how much of that is left over from last quarter, or how much do you need to have as outgoings? And so it really helps you drill down on those pieces. And just part of the focus of the course is, if you were to look for investment funding, or if you wanted to, say, buy a building, like, what is your banker going to ask you? What do you need to have on reserve? Like, how do you present that information? And then for each business, it's a little bit different, because my business, for example, is very seasonal. So I make 0 money from January to June. And so I have to save up enough, like at the end of the previous year, and live off of that. And so that's one of the things that they teach you, how to tell that story to a potential funder or a borrower, a lender. So it's important to understand those things. And even just in the 5 weeks that we did that financial piece, I feel like so much more competent in being able to understand the numbers that I'm looking at each month.
And I think if you go to an event and you have X number of items to sell, and you go to the event and you come back and you've made some money, you're like, oh, I made some money. But you don't know what your cost of goods were. You don't know what your time was. And I would imagine for you, you have employees that have probably been with you now for a while. So maybe do you need to have like a manager, or do you need to elevate some of the employees and pay more of an hourly wage than you were?
Right.
People kind of expect that if they stay in, they're loyal and they do a good job, that over time they'll get raises, and, you know, it helps you manage that, I would assume.
Yeah.
From a marketing standpoint, were there things that you learned that you were like, whoa?
I think it really helped me to fine tune. Like, I had a lot of ideas just buzzing around in my head for a long time. And I'd say that's probably my biggest, I don't know whether it's a strength or a detriment, but
both, probably.
Yeah, it's like I have more ideas than I can ever execute. And that's part of what I struggle with, is like trying to distill those into what's a fun idea and sounds great, but like isn't actually practical. And figuring out that I had all these different channels that actually fed into the same outcome was really exciting. That was kind of a breakthrough moment for me, of thinking, well, should we have a podcast? Should we have a blog? Should we do more fashion shoots and things like this? And realizing that actually they're all elements that are going to help me get to where I'm trying to get to. So it was really interesting to have that breakthrough, and it was taught by Liz from The Coven, who's just marketing guru and just had so much valuable information to share, and even just on how they branded and launched their business in such a quick time frame. I mean, they launched The Coven within like 1 year of having that conversation to doors open. That's like insane.
And for those of you that maybe don't know, The Coven is a women-focused core. Is it all women?
It's women, non-binary, and trans folks.
Okay.
So, and it's a community and co-working space. So it's not just, I'm a founding member there. I should disclose that I invested in them during their Kickstarter phase, or their I Fund Women campaign, I should say. And so I'm pretty close to their business in terms of like having been there a long time, and just seeing what they're accomplishing is really, really impressive. It's very inspirational to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
And so you're in a co-working environment versus like just working out of your house. Why did you do that?
I do about a day or two a week at The Coven. And really for me, like the thing that I have found the most beneficial for it, rather than sitting in my little hovel of an office, which is like, my office is the room where everything gets thrown in and the door gets wedged shut so that you don't have to deal with it. So I like sit in this tiny little pile of papers and crap, and it's very easy to feel isolated. And especially when I don't have a business partner or anyone on my team that's helping with the organization of the events. And so it can be very lonely. And sometimes you need other people that are doing similar work, or it may be completely different work, but understand what that feels like to not know, or just to bounce ideas off of and see how they solved problems, and really the community there is the biggest benefit, I would say. So I have met so many people. We hired all of the people that did our workshops last year were people that I had made connections through there. I found my photographer, my Instagram manager, all of these different people that I probably wouldn't have come across in other networking groups or circles. And I'm very much like, I'm quite protective of my time and time I give away to things, because usually it has to come out of my time with my family or, things like that. And so to find somewhere where I could make those connections without having to outlay a lot of extra, you have to come and network for 3 hours. Like,
right.
I don't want to network with no purpose. Like, that to me just sounds like an absolute nightmare. So if I can just be in an environment where you might just be around and meet these people, and maybe you go to an event that you see them speak at and realize, they're a good fit for what I'm looking for. I found my lawyer there. I found my tax person there.
Interesting. Yeah. That they were all kind of right there.
Yeah.
And when you needed that resource, someone happened to be in the group. And
all different industries.
And it's not like BNI where you're having to pay money to go bring leads and
Oh no. I don't
just
deal
horrors.
With that, no.
Tell me about. I think this will be a compliment, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
So we worked on an event together this year, and it was your first time working on this event. And you came and set the event up, and then it was your daughter's birthday party. So you went to your daughter's birthday party. And the next day, I think you came, it was a 2-day event, and I think you came at the end of the second day. And I was like, wow, that's really ballsy. Number one, you'd never done the event before. Number two, I am the kind of person who feels like, like I have to be there. Like it has to be me.
Yeah.
And it's bull crap. But, and you had great people that worked it. So whether you were there or weren't there, I didn't miss a beat in terms of, I don't think the customers cared.
Yeah.
And so I remembered saying to our friend Sarah after the event was over, I'm like, wow, maybe we should learn something from that.
Yeah.
Like you can hire competent people.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the person making the fries. And
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that. I have always thought I have to be making the fries.
Yeah.
You don't.
That's a very new thing for me. So
are you must be intentional about it.
Yeah, I have to be, because really like I can't physically be everywhere. And so it was a decision, first of all, I have great people.
Yes,
so the people that I've worked with have been with me for multiple years now and are very competent and
For sure.
have, kind of seen all the different scenarios. And so it used to be that, yes, I was at every single event every day, start to finish. And that is just when you're doing 4 or 5 events in a weekend, like not possible.
Yeah, and too many.
Too many, yeah. And so, yeah, I had to get to a point where I realized that I was starting to feel burnt out and I had competent people. And what I tend to do now more is I will go, especially if it's a new venue or an event that we haven't done before, I'll go for setup in the first hour or two usually, because that's when there are going to be issues if there are anything. Usually it's, this space isn't now available or someone's got a different display and they didn't realize, And so those are definitely things that my team can deal with, but it's also nice for me to troubleshoot and figure out, okay, make sure everyone's happy and then head out. Yeah. So it's,
Do you remember the first time you did that? Were you like dying inside?
There was a lot of text messages. There was a lot of, how is it? Are there people there? Are people shopping? Do the vendors seem happy? Did everyone have it?
And when you run a market, you really want everybody to be happy. You want them to make sales, but there's so many elements you don't control.
Yeah.
My first market that I did, I almost had a nervous breakdown because it rained and I was like, no amount of planning or hard work can really deal with rain.
It sucks. Yeah.
And then I realized like, oh, wait, the people have been at markets and it's rained before. It's not my personal fault.
Yeah.
Like they were like, oh, it sucks that it's raining, but it happens.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be all right. But
yeah, I think that's the thing is you have to troubleshoot as much as you can. And if something comes up where you can improve the situation, you do it. If not, it's kind of, we're all in this together and you make the best of it. And I mean, our people, especially our craft market people, are so seasoned with those types of outdoor events and stuff. They're very used to rain or shine and they know what they're signing up for. And
so you've got craft market, you've got vintage market. There used to be a market in town that was really cool. That was I'll call it a premium market because it was higher end and it was, good retail goods. Some of them were made here. Some of them weren't. Like Faribault Woolen Mills was, I can't remember the name of it, Minnesota Made or something.
Okay.
Can you see like having another brand and expanding that way?
Yeah, I've thought about that a little bit. So the other options that I was considering when, what are the next steps for this business is to do a national or an international variation. And the more I thought about that, like a Renegade Craft Fair, for example, they do things all over the world, in fact. And I think the reason that I don't want to go in that direction is it's so much legwork to build the trust and build the audience and build your network of makers. And it's very much a word of mouth industry as well, I think. And so we started pretty slow and we had a handful of key people that really spread the word for us. And that was something that happened kind of organically, and we were very lucky to have that. And I think, oh gosh, if you're trying to do a show in Portland and you don't have any connections there, how do you even do that? And I often see other, the opposite end of that is Minneapolis being on the receiving end of national things. And I'm always curious to see how those go and how well they're received. And I always watch what other similar events are doing and things like that. The one area that I'm considering, and this is maybe sharing too much, but considering expanding into, and this is like a 2-year plan for me, would be a wholesale operation. So typically our market vendors are doing straight to consumer sales, but we get a lot of buyers from patina or local boutique stores and people that are recruiting for vendors for malls and things like that come to our markets to find people. And so I've been toying with the idea for it's probably closer to 2 years now I've been thinking about this, but the idea of doing a wholesale show here, that would be a next step for a lot of our vendors, and bringing national buyers to Minneapolis.
That's smart.
Yeah, and there is the Minneapolis Mart happens here, and I guess they're going through some changes with their format and stuff, but I think it would be a really fun way to get people to stop seeing this as flyover country, because I think that's a common thing, that you have to go to a New York now or one of the big trade shows in San Francisco, and by the time you've outlaid your $7,000 on booth fees and hotel and travel and shipping everything, that's a really big investment for a lot of people, especially as a first-time wholesale show.
I was going to ask you, I thought for sure you were going to say kids, because you're a mom of two young kids.
Interesting. Yeah, I've had a conversation about that before. I haven't done too many very specialty markets, but that is definitely something I've considered before. That and jewelry.
Yes.
Because jewelry is by far our biggest category. And I know that there's the Walker jewelry sale that just happened a couple of weekends ago. So I think there's definitely a market for that as well.
I feel like that jewelry show comes up every year, and I hear about it the day it's happening.
Yeah.
And then I have something else going on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who they market to.
Track. Yeah.
But it's just like, I guess members of the Walker.
Yeah.
And there you go. That's enough.
I don't know. I go there for the British Arrows Awards every Christmas.
Yes.
That's like my family holiday tradition here. And yeah.
That's so funny. Are there, when you look around and you look at the Twin Cities, like, there's got to be people that you're just like, oh, that's so cool. Like, because you're a tastemaker. Do you see yourself as a tastemaker?
Yeah, I guess maybe technically. I don't think of it that way. I really hate the term influencer, and I don't want to, I guess I'm not looking for bragging rights on that stuff is how I would see it. Like, maybe I accidentally am doing some of those things, but that's not how I would rather be known for my work than, I
think that's what a tastemaker is.
Yeah.
I don't think that you necessarily are consciously influencing based on your style, but I think you are collecting people, and therefore you have a certain aesthetic and a certain taste that maybe you're not exhibiting in your own life or your own clothing or whatever, but who those people are that are on the cutting edge, because you can look at what they're doing, what they're selling, how they're selling it, and you can tell whether they have it or not.
Yeah.
I would say I have that in the food space. Like, I can look at someone's product, I can interview them, I can just talk with them, and I can know whether they have it or don't have it.
That makes sense.
And sometimes people that have it aren't successful for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
Other times people will surprise you, but don't you think, like, when someone sits down and you talk to them, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. I think a lot of it for me is like, I've always had like a pretty high tolerance for risk. And so like, even just in my family growing up and stuff, I think that I would make decisions like the decision to travel solo around the world for 8 months, like freaked my mum the F out. Like, she just about had a hernia the day that I told her I was leaving the country for 8 months on my own. And like, it's that kind of trust in yourself and your instinct, and you like mull these ideas over. And that's kind of how I like direct my business is I'll get like a little kernel of an idea, and I'll keep thinking about it and mulling it over, and it just sits right with me or it doesn't, and I'll keep working it until it clicks. And then I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And this is what we're doing. And my brain is like I think it's like my event planning background. I'll like be very rational and logical, but then I also have the ability to trust the emotional piece that comes along with that, and be like, this is right, and I just know it's right,
And you don't question yourself. Like, you just go.
Yeah,
when you're ready to go, you go.
I think I'm like so planful that I don't do things that are like not thought through, but it's like quite often, like, if I say I'm going to do something, usually by the time it comes out of my mouth, the decision is made and it's happening.
Okay.
And then other people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, you just ask for it. You ask for it and you take what you want and you get it. Like, and people don't realize that there's a lot to be had if you just ask for it.
And sometimes I think you have to, I was just talking to someone today who's having trouble getting paid for her work. And I was like, well, they're paying everybody else. So somehow you're coming across as that you are okay with being the last in line for payment. And yet you have contractors that you're paying. And and they want her to do more work. And I'm like, so you can't do more work till you get paid for the work you've done. And in the future, start to ask for some upfront. If someone has a problem with that, they either don't have the money to begin with, or they don't respect you enough to understand that you're a business person too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially in Minnesota, and I think for women especially, it's hard to ask for what you want. It is hard to value your work, especially if you're in a creative field. Like I see a lot of vendors who come through with products, and I'll ask them, how much is this? And they tell me, and I'm like, you're charging way too little for that. Like, this should be double that price. You need to charge more. And they're like, oh, everyone says that, but I don't know. I'm like, do it.
That's exactly. Or I will be at an event, and a food event, and people won't sample. Like, oh, people just come and they just want the sample. I don't sell them I'm like, no, you're selling peanut butter. They're not going to buy your specialty peanut butter for $12 at a farmer's market if they can't taste it.
Exactly.
And if they have to ask you for a sample too, like, well, if they want one, they'll ask. No, people are going to walk by your booth, give you the side eye, and think, oh, I wish I could try that, but they're not sampling. That's too bad. And keep moving.
Exactly. Yeah. And, and we see a lot of success with people who offer at our markets, like just little like make and take things, even if it's just like a little free kids activity or like a sampling something or other. I have this one lady who does bath and body products, and she's an older lady. She's I'm not going to hazard to guess, but retirement age. And she is one of the hardest hustlers I have ever met. She will literally, she'll have her husband man the booth, and she will walk around to every table and say, would you like a sample of lotion? It's so cold outside. Or she'll ask the brewery venue that we're in, is it okay if I put my hand creams in the restrooms? And you go in there and use the restroom, and her stuff's in there. And I'm like, that is genius, my friend. And her stuff's awesome as well. But she, how else are you going to make one bath or body product stand out from another one?
And you have to work your booth.
Yeah.
Like, you can't sit behind it in your tall director's chair. It isn't an art fair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where people are coming to peruse your art.
Yeah.
It is a market. Like, you need to tell people about your product. They are there because they want to connect with you. Yeah. I get frustrated when people just sit in their booth and then complain like, well, nobody bought anything.
Yeah, I will say our top sellers are people who never bring chairs. Because, and even if I'm at a market shopping, to me, the people who are standing up look ready to sell, look like they've just had a customer and you're going to catch them next. And you want to be at that booth that has
100%.
Yeah. That has just served people.
From working with you this summer, you had a handful of booths. I was like, that person right there is going to be the one who's going to make the most. This person over here is really working every angle.
Yeah.
And when someone comes, especially vintage,
like,
you don't know where to access that, right? Do I start looking at the t-shirts? Right. Do I look at the button downs? Right. I don't know. If someone says, hey, I have this over here that would look cute. Yeah. Then I'm like, oh, okay. They invite me in, and then we start to talk, and they know kind of what I'm looking for. And
it's a huge part of it. And, the way that I think of it as well is you're there for the 5 hours or whatever our show is. Like, you can choose to make money or you can choose not to make money. You're there anyway. You may as well put 110% into it, and that's definitely, we see a really big difference between the people who take those things really seriously and really push, and even just like how you engage a customer with like a first question. We have one brand, Farinita, that does a ton of our shows. And they have a great team of women who sell their jewelry who, the first question they ask you is, are you familiar with Farinita? And that's a great opening question, because you can either say yes or no. And if you say yes, it's like, great, like, look at this new line we have. If they say no, that's a perfect opening to, well, we work with women who are survivors of sex trafficking and abuse in 16 countries, and then people are hooked and they want to know more about, oh, this line of jewelry is made from bullet casings in Ethiopia that are melted down and made into necklaces. Like, that's really cool.
Yes,
and their stuff is really cute, really affordable. It's ethical. You're buying all the jewelry.
Yep.
Like, next thing you know, like, they get me every time.
I was like, well, where can I sign up to buy some right now?
See, I even know their elevator pitch. That's how good they are. Like,
and it does take that. And if you don't have that, or you don't know what it is, then work on it. Like, you can be better. If you go to a show, I went to a lot of trade shows in my career, and sometimes the trade, I didn't have it that weekend. I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
But, I always evaluated and like, well, I didn't do as well. Here's what I can do different. Get people that you trust to listen to your elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to stay stuck in it. You can do something different.
And if you're not the person, like maybe you're a great maker and you're not a good seller. Like I'm probably a terrible salesperson. I'm like, do you want to buy this? No. Okay. Never mind.
Thanks anyway.
Thanks for looking. Like hire someone, pay someone $15 an hour to stand at your booth who's got a great personality, who can draw people in, who knows your product and knows you and can really push that stuff. Like, if you do a 5-hour show and you hire someone to come there for 5 hours, you're out $75? Like
it depends. And if any salesperson could sell that in a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sell that in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, it's been super awesome to talk to you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Anyone that you want to like say, hey, just looking like, is there anyone that's doing anything cool?
So I guess I mentioned a few times about the people who do our markets and then go on to do like fun pop-ups and stuff. So there's a couple of those that are coming up right now that I just wanted to give a shout out to, even though it's not promoting my own business, I guess. But so there is a cool new collective called the Founders Collective, which is Mend Jewelry, who is one of our vendors, B&D Custom Crafts, and then they've also partnered with, I believe it's Heidi from Excelsior Candle Company. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing a little pop-up over at Ridgedale Center. And so that's November and December. So it's really cool to see them getting into this semi-permanent space and hiring and scaling up in that way. And
it's Jordan, is that?
It's Jordan, yes.
She's fantastic.
She's great. She's really great. Yeah.
She was a guest a few episodes back. Fun. Mend Jewelry.
Yeah,
you can look for her.
She's really interesting. She has just like, her business has a lot of interesting facets about it that I think is really fascinating. And then on the vintage side, one of our vendors, Moth Oddities, Yana and Ian, are doing a pop-up with a few other makers and local people, not just vintage people, over on Grand, called the Grand Collective. So that's going to open soon here.
Where is it? Do you know?
It's right on Grand opposite Red Rabbit, I believe.
Oh, sweet. Right down by my house.
Just right down by your house. Toddle on down there. Yeah.
I love it.
So they
were real sweet.
Yeah, they're great as well. And, so it's cool to see these brands, having like dipping a toe in like semi-permanent retail spaces.
I really liked a couple that came to Duluth that had a vintage bus.
Yes.
They were real sweet.
Yes.
I hope they come back
awesome.
next year.
Yeah, they're based out in Detroit, I believe. So,
yeah, and they kind of drive around. And if you thought of like the idea that you could do retail in so many different ways, like at the state fair, in a van, in a 10x10 tent, at a market, like it's really commoditized the idea of that you can buy things in lots of different places. Yeah. You used to have to go to the mall,
right?
And if it wasn't at the mall, then it was, I guess, at a market.
Yep.
I feel like you can find cool stories and cool makers anywhere these days, and it's really been fun.
And it gives us it's a really flexible business model, because if something's not working, we are not locked into a space that we've invested in. Yeah. And speaking of that, one last plug, we have a new location for our winter holiday market with Linden Hills Farmers Market. So we're over at Wagner's Greenhouses and Garden Center, which is at 60th and Penn. So we're over there now, finishing out the last few weeks of the farmers market season, and then holiday market season starts November 2nd through December, every Saturday and Sunday.
So you'll be inside Wagner's?
Inside the greenhouses, yes.
And then people will be able to buy wreaths and those kind of things too?
All of the winter home decor and stuff, and then they have all their gorgeous like indoor plants and things.
And I know Nola, who was the grandma, who was Nola Wagner, she died.
Okay.
And it must be her kids that are taking it over.
Yeah, it's a whole family business. So there's the two brothers, and then one of their daughters.
And Nola was a fantastic person.
Yeah,
she was really great.
That greenhouse has been there for like 100 years.
Yes, it has been.
So yeah.
Oh, I love that you're going to be in there.
Yeah, Sundays right now 10 till 3, and then Saturdays and Sundays starting November and December. So
it's greenhouse, so it's fun to be inside and it's kind of warm.
With the farmers market, so there's food vendors, food trucks outside. It'll be really fun.
All right. Yeah. Oh, well, we will look for you there. Thanks for being a guest today.
Thanks for having me.